Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another how to play video, and today we are learning how to play Lunar Rush from Dead Alive Games, designed by Stephen Skippy Brown. And before I get started, I do need to tell you that there are several deluxe components being used in this how to play video. Specifically, the score markers being used up here are for the deluxe set, as are these resources, as are the meeples, and then there is also being used this neoprene playmat. Additionally, the gold module cards are the deluxe hollow foil cards, and the player boards and ships are both the deluxe double layered versions. So if you have the retail version, it will look a little bit different. However, functionally, the game will play exactly the same as all of the components that I'm using for this how to play video. Now first, let's talk about how to set the game up. The first thing that you need to do is place your board out onto the table, and to one side, place your board with the selling order and the initiative track, as well as your turn marker. Make sure you place your turn marker on turn 1. You're going to want to place all of your earth items, which are all the cubes of varying colors, and we have the habitation parts, technology, and heavy machinery. You're going to want to place it out on the board onto the satellite out here that's marked Earth Side Way Station, and then you're going to want to take all of your moon items, which is everything that is not a cube, and you're going to place it over here on the moon side way station here on the board, and that is where all the resources will be stored throughout the game. Next thing you want to do is you're going to want to pick which market you want to use. The game's going to come with 3 different markets which correspond to different years. There is Earth 2149, 2150, and 2151. For your first game, we actually recommend that you use Earth 2151 as it is the simplest of all of the markets. Then you're going to want to check and make sure that you are using the proper player count side. And in this case, I've set up a 4-player game, so we want to make sure that we are flipped over, like so, to the 3 and 4-player side. Then we'll set that to the side, and for each of the resources marked, you're going to place one resource of that type on each box below the far left number on the board. And you're going to be using these to track the value of each of these items when they're sold at market. Next, you'll give all the players their individual components. And for that, you're going to place 7 of their 10 meeples right here on their colored spot on the board. Each player's player area should be set up as follows. They should have their player board. They should have 2 storage cards, one for 1 and one for 2. They should each begin the game with 3 meeples on their board and their set of module upgrade cards. And you'll know they belong to a certain player because you'll notice that on the back of one of them, it will have the same color with the corporation symbol on the back. And you'll notice that correlates to the bottom left corner of all the cards, which has the same symbol and color, whether it is on the advanced purple side or the intermediate blue side. Finally, you want to make sure each player has a single habitation part, and that you set your energy level at 0 and your life support at 6. You'll give each player a cheat sheet, which is going to give you information about what the icons mean on one side and the steps of each turn on the other side. Each player will get their 5 bid cards, numbered 1 through 5 in their color. They'll gain their 6 ship cards, or tiles. Finally, in Easy Reach, you will place all of the route closed cards here. You'll place the clear meeple next to the route closed cards. You'll place your stack of ×2 ×3 tokens, which will be explained how they're used later on. And then near the board, you will place 8 gold module cards out where everyone is able to see them. And then the final thing you'll do is you'll take each player's score marker and you'll place it here on the 25 gigacredit space. Then, with all that being set, you are ready to begin. Now the game itself is divided into 3 different phases. So let's talk about what happens during the Earth phase. The first thing that happens is, if you are on turn 6 or 7, you will close down some of the routes. And that's because if you were to select those routes on turn 6 or 7, you would actually never gain the benefit of selecting those routes. And the way that works is on turn 6, you'll draw one of these cards here, flip it over, and place it on the slow launch right here. What that means is, if you select this spot, you simply immediately gain whatever benefit is there. Then on turn 7, you would discard this one, and you deal out another one on the slow route, and one on the medium route. And you will note that it is noted here on the board, just in case you should forget. Right here saying turn 6 and 7, place a route close card, and here on turn 7, place a route close card. Then, once that's done, each player is going to bid for their initiative. And that's going to take place over here on this board. And each player has a set number of bid cards, all numbered 1 through 5. And they're going to choose how many Giga credits they would like to bid. At this point, I'll tell you that each player starts with 25 Giga credits, and Giga credits are both your currency in the game, and more importantly, they are your points. So you are actually bidding your victory points in order to decide who gets to choose what routes first. So each player will pick one of their cards, saying they are going to bid 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 Giga credits for the right to choose routes first, and which might look something like this. Everyone places their bid, and then everyone flips their cards over, and we see what people have bid. And so you'll see we have 2 5s, a 3, and a 1. And so what that means is red and green are both going to lose 5 Giga credits no matter what happens. Blue will lose 3, and yellow will lose 1. And then we would place them up here in initiative order. Now you'll notice here that we have a tie. Lunar Rush is what we call a no-luck game. And the reason for that is nothing is left up to chance except for the very first bid on the very first turn. If on the very first turn you wind up with a situation like this with a tied bid, there are plenty of options on how you break the tie to decide who gets to go first. If it is only 2 players who are tied, and you happen to have the Lunar Rush commemorative coin, you could use this and flip the coin. Another option would be you will simply shuffle up the remaining bid cards, and each player flips one over to see who has the higher number, and they would go first. So in this case, red would go, then green, then blue, then yellow. Now, it's important to note that that only happens on the very first turn of the game. From here on out, anytime there is a tie, you would simply reverse the order. So let's say this was the initiative order on turn 1, and then on turn 2, when the bids come in again, we flip and we find that there is yet another tie, like so. The first thing that you would do is we would notice here that these would switch like so, and then we have a tie here. So what happens now is you simply go in the reverse order that you did in the previous turn. So therefore, whoever was lower in the initiative order in the previous turn, they have the tiebreaker moving forward. You'll also note that for the second round, I placed out a second row of cards, which would then, of course, slide up and replace these up here. That is because each turn, you must use a new bid card. In other words, you cannot bid the same number 2 turns in a row. So, for the second round, once we'd flip these over, we would then remove all of these from the board. They would go back to their players' hands, and we would set the second round initiative order. This is also a good time to point out that the later in the game that you get, the more expensive bids are. When you get to turn 5, your bids are times 2. So that means this bid here would cost green 8 Giga credits instead of just 4 Giga credits. When you get to turn 6, bids are multiplied by 3. So this bid here is not 4, nor is it 8 like it was on turn 5, it is now 12. And then in the last turn of the game, bids are multiplied by 5, meaning the winning bid here would be 20 Giga credits. However, let's assume that on the first turn of the game, this was our bid. So let's assume on the very first turn of the game, this wound up being our initiative order. The first thing that we would do is reduce everyone's score accordingly. So yellow loses 2, green loses 4, blue loses 1, and red loses 4, like so. Then the next thing that happens is players are allowed to choose their route in initiative order. So green gets first pick of do they want a fast route, a medium route, or a slow route up, or a fast, medium, or slow route down. I'll point out here that for the first few rounds of the game, it is usually recommended that you start by prioritizing your up route first and then your down route second. However, there is nothing in the rules that says you have to have one up and one down, nor does it say which order you must obtain them in. But for this situation, we will assume that green decides they would like to take the medium route up, and they claim that there. Then red gets a choice, and they decide they are going to take one of the fast routes up, and so they would place there. Then yellow gets their turn, and they claim the slow route up, while blue brings up the rear and claims this second fast route up. Then we would restart the order again, and green would get to choose a down route. We'll say green chooses the slow route down, red chooses the medium route down, and then yellow and blue are left with just the fast route. Now it's very important to note that the lighter green color, or fast 1, does matter when it comes to the market phase. So when you're left with a choice like this, you will always want to take this one because that means your stuff will sell at the market first. And that will be explained later on. So we have a down route there and a down route there. The next thing that you do is you're going to load your moon-bound ships. And on the board, it tells you how many things each route can hold. It's also noted on the reverse side of each of your ship tiles or cards, just in case you want something that's a little easier to see from your perspective. The fast routes can only hold 2 items, and that can be collected from any of the Earth side items here. And you'll note that all Earth items are cubes. And so we will just assume that red decides they're going to take one piece of heavy machinery, piece of tech, and one piece of technology. Well, blue decides they want a habitation part. And the habitation part are these larger cubes, and they're larger because they actually take up 2 spaces on the ship. While the medium route can take 5 items. And you will also note that there are 2 little astronaut symbols there. And that's because you can also send more workers up to the moon. If you remember at the beginning of the game, each player placed 3 astronauts on their board. And in addition to that, each player also placed 1 habitation part on the moon as well. So green is going to use 2 of their spaces to place new astronauts onto the moon. And so they'll go on there, that's 2, and they're going to send 1 habitation part and 1 piece of heavy machinery, while the slow route can take 9 items. And yellow also is going to take the advantage of this and put 2 astronauts up there, and they're going to take 2 habitation parts, so now they have 2, 4, 6 filled, and then 2 bits of technology and 1 heavy machinery. Then, once all the ships are loaded, all of the ships will move. For the slow and medium route, that means they start their journey to the moon. So, the slow route would move to here, the medium route would move to here, while the 2 fast routes would actually arrive to the moon immediately, thus delivering whatever supplies each rocket had on it to the player's player board to be used during the moon phase. This is also a good time to note that the secondary fast route is only used in a 4-player game, both here and here. Now you'll notice we haven't done anything with the Earthbound ships, and that's because that happens at the end of the moon phase. And at this point, we move into the moon phase. Now, most of the moon phase is going to take place on the individual player boards that I showed you earlier. However, before that happens, players have an opportunity to purchase gold modules. And what the gold modules are special worker placement spots that will be completely unique to the player that purchases them. And the way the order of purchasing is determined is in reverse initiative order. So in this case, green got to make the first choice of choosing routes either up or down. But when it comes to purchasing gold modules, blue, since they went last, they will get first choice. And the way it works is as follows. Each of the gold modules down at the bottom has a cost. For example, the Flight Operations Center costs 1 technology, 1 heavy machinery, and then 1 life support and 1 energy, which, if you remember, is tracked on your player board. If you have done that, then you're able to build this, which will be worth 10 points at the end of the game. The last thing to note is that when using gold modules, you must use resources that you either have left over from the last moon phase or that just arrived on a rocket that turn. You are not able to produce any items on the moon and then use those to build a gold module in the same turn. However, what this one does is gives you a permanent power. From then on, all of your bids cost you Giga credits as if you had bid with a card that is 2 lower, to a minimum of 0. In other words, if blue decides to get this, on future turns, if they play, say, their 3 bid, instead of having to pay 3, 6, 9, or 15 Giga credits, depending on how far we are in the game, they would pay 1, 2, 3, or 5. And as noted, it is possible to get all the way down to a bid that is free. There are several other kinds of gold modules that you can get. There are ones like this. And these are shared worker placement spots. And every turn, the player that owns it will automatically get this benefit right here. In this case, 4 Lunar shards, and that will be every single turn. However, each of the other players has the option to place one of their astronauts on the spot as well, thus gaining the benefit that is there. Like so, in this case, by placing a worker, they would also each get 4 Lunar shards. It's also important to note that each player can only place one worker on those cards, hence the A, B, and C. Then there are cards like this, that are simply a single worker placement spot that only the owner of the card can use. In this case, the tourist market allows you to sell goods at the item's maximum market price, regardless of what the market actually is. And then the final type of card is one that is not a permanent bonus, rather it is a once per turn action that happens automatically. Next, if you're playing with the Moon Wonders module, that is when that draft would take place on turns 4, 5, and 6. Then you would proceed to operate your individual moon base where you're building and producing items. Now, after all players have built their optional gold modules, and if you are playing with the Moon Wonders, done any drafting if you're on turns 4, 5, or 6, you're going to move into the build and produce phase, which is handled on this board right here. Now, it's important to remember that at the end of the Earth phase, all of the ships that were about to reach the moon will have arrived. So anything that you had on a ship, you would then get to take and place into your supplies, like so. Now, I'll also point out here that these two cards are used for storage, and anything that's on here counts as a single, while anything on here counts as a double. So to save supplies, we could do this by moving one of these down here, discard that one, and one of these down here, and discard that one. Then what you're going to do is you are going to use your workers to gain all of the various things that you have here on the board. So for example, I could take one worker, put it right here on the basic ore mine, and get one ore like so. Perhaps I take another one and I put it over here and gain one shard, like so. However, the meat of the game comes with how you upgrade your various locations. And so to do that, if you look down at the bottom of the board, you'll see that there is a cost. So in this case, basic life support can be upgraded if I pay a single habitation part, 1 life support, and 1 energy. If I do that, I'll take the intermediate life support and I'll drop it right in here, and now it is better. And you'll see it's also going to be worth 3 gigacredits at the end of the game. Now this can be upgraded again for another habitation part, a technology, a life support, and an energy. And if I were to do that, I would simply pull the card out and flip it over like so, and now we have the upgraded life support. But for now, I will leave this right here. You will also notice over here that there are 2 spaces where more cards can go. And it tells you on the side, this is for Lunathus Manufacturing and Lunarium Refinery. And these are abilities that you do not start the game with, but you can upgrade to. So in this case, you'll see to get a Lunarium Refinery, I need a habitation part, 1 technology, 1 heavy machinery, and 2 Lunarium ores. Well, you'll notice that right here I only have 1 of those. But what I can do is, on my turn, I could go here and gain a second piece of ore, and I'll move that down there. Then I can spend all of these things, like so, and this will go right back up here, and we wind up with 1 left of those. And now I can place right over here my Lunarium ore, or right next to the board, depending on how you like it, if you have the double layered boards or not. And now I have this other ability over here. And now I have the ability to spend 2 energy and 2 ore to create a Lunarium bar. Now there is one more thing that I do want to make sure that I point out. And that is, sometimes you don't have what you need to upgrade without using the basic version first. So let's just say that at some point, I am in this situation right here. where I really want to upgrade my life support, but I'm unable to because I don't have any life support. But what you are allowed to do is you can place a worker down, get what you need, and then spend the things that you just got to upgrade. So now I could spend my one habitation part, my one energy, and my one life support to upgrade my life support. And that would go here, though the worker would stay, and you don't get a bonus, but now I have another spot that I could go to and get 3, like so. And there are just a couple other things to point out during the moon phase. The first thing is, after you have completed all of your moon phase, and you have whatever supplies that you have gained, we'll just pretend that I wound up with that, so I finished my turn, and I have 1 shard and 1 bar and 4 pieces of ore, which is not what you see on this board. But after you have done that, before you load your ship with whatever it is you're going to send back down to Earth, which we'll learn about in just a moment, you have to make sure your workers have been fed and they have oxygen. And so you take your workers and you put them back to bed. And for each one that you put to bed, you have to spend 1 life support. And as you can see, I am in a very bad spot here because I have 1 worker right here who does not have any air and food, which means he will die at the end of this turn. And this is a big deal because if he dies, 1, he goes out of the game and I can't get him back, or her, I should say, but also I will lose 25 gigacredits. Now, there is one thing I can do. I could take this 1 worker and instead of putting, say, this bar on a ship, I could maybe hold on to that bar. I could put the worker on the ship and send it back down to Earth. That would keep me from losing points and keep the worker from going out of the game. However, it does mean that I would not have this worker and I'll have to send one back up. Now, the other thing that can happen is you can actually wind up with more than 5 workers. And as you can see, right here, it tells me that I can only house 5 workers in my habitation module. So if I have these other 3, then all 3 of them would die because they're left exposed. But you can actually upgrade your habitation module. As you can see right here, for 1 habitation part, I can pick all of these up and put these down right here. And now you will see that I can have up to 10 workers here on the moon, like so. And you'll note it tells you right here what the cost is if you cannot feed them or give them housing is the minus 25 gigabytes. And that's how you're going to operate your moon base. Overall, you'll be using the abilities here, changing things out to wind up with goods that you're going to be able to send back down to Earth to sell. You'll be deciding if you want to go into making Lunarium or Lunathus gems, or if you're just going to stick to the cheaper, easier to find shards and ore, or perhaps you'll wind up doing both. And just keep in mind that at the end of the game, you will get points for the bottom right corner of every single card that you have, and keep in mind that things can be upgraded twice, though of course you have to have the blue version before you can have the purple version. You have to be intermediate before you can be advanced. So let's look at what happens after this part of the moon phase. As I said, you will feed all of your workers, and then you're going to load up your ships, and let's talk about that now. Then the last part of the moon phase is where you load your earthbound ships, and each player can place whatever it is that they would like from their supply onto these ships. It's important to note that Earth is not going to buy any items that came from Earth to begin with. In other words, anything that is a cube cannot be sold. However, things that are not cubes can be sold. And just like when you're going up to the moon, the faster the route you take down from the moon, the fewer items you're able to take. And just like with the up route, it is listed right here on the board, whereas the fast route, you can take 1 item or a single astronaut, while the medium route can take 3 items, while the slow route can take 7 items. And so players will then place whatever it is that they are sending back down onto the ships, like so. And this is where I'll say, though it is rare, it is possible, depending on how players are using the various resources, it is possible to start to run low on supplies, and that is where these tokens come into play. You can very simply place them on your ship, going down like so, and then place a single resource on it like so, thus saying that you have 3 metal bars on this ship going down to the Earth. Then the next thing that you do is you move into the market phase. And the first thing that happens in the market phase is all of the ships will move. And so you'll see slow and the medium on the first turn they go will not actually get to the market, but the 2 fast ships will go all the way down. So just for the sake of this example, let's go ahead and add a few more ships out here onto the earthbound spaces like so. And then for the moment, I'm going to move some of this aside so you can see a little bit better how the market's going to work. So let's just say that this is our setup on, we'll say, round 4. And things are about to hit the market. So the first thing we do is we start with the fast ships. And as I said at the beginning, the lighter green one, the fast route 1, will be the first to hit the market. So you'll notice that it is going to arrive at the market before all of these other ships that are very close. So first it would be this one. Second, it would be this one right here. Then third, we would have the medium route. And then last, we would have the slow route. And then all of the others would continue on and move down, like so, ready to sell another round. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to move these off to the side also so you can see a little bit better. And then we're going to score our points based on the market that we have chosen. And so let's just say that at this point in the game, this is where the market is. It probably would have everything a little further down, but for the sake of this example, this will work out just fine. So the first thing is, right here, yellow would get to sell 1 Lunarium gem. And usually what I like to do is I take it and I place it over here, and I'll explain why I do that in just a moment. But right here it says yellow gets 9 points. We're selling that. And then, once their sale is complete, it moves down 1 space. Then we come to blue. Now blue has sold a Lunathis gem. Again, I'll place that over here, which means blue is going to get 42 points for what they've done, like so. And then this will move down 1 space. So on a later turn, someone selling a Lunathis gem would only get 40. Then we come here to red, and you'll see red has 3 Lunarium bars there. So we take a look here, and we see that the current rate is 22. So we multiply the 22 times 3 for 66 points, which takes them all the way up to 87 points here. And then we actually move this down 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. So the next person who sells is actually only going to get 18 instead of 22. And again, I'll just take this and place that right over there because that is 3 of them. Then we move on to the last one. Now this has a whole bunch of stuff here. So for blue, I'm going to start out with the 3 Lunarium ore. 3 times 8 would be 24 points. And so that would take them up to 90. And I will place this right over here, just as a reminder that now we got sold 4, and we go 1, 2, 3. Then we have 2 Lunathis shards, which I will place over here. And that means they get 12 more points, which puts them to 102. So they would take one of these 100 chips. You'll notice it also has 200 in the back. And then there are 2 Lunarium bars, which currently sell for 18. So that is another 36 points, putting them up to 138. And I will also put this right over here and move that down too. Now the last thing that we do is you'll see over here it has this refresh mark. What happens here is if the value of the goods has passed this darkened circle here, which in this case is only the Lunarium bars, then the market has the potential to recover. So in this case, nothing happens here with the Lunathist, nothing happens here with the Lunarium, so we can remove those, and nothing happens down here with the Lunathist shards. However, the Lunarium bars has passed this line here. So then we look over here and we see that between 3 and 5 were sold this round, in this case being 5, so it will recover 1 space. Now let's just say that only 2 bars had sold this round. In that case, as you can see, it would recover 2 spaces. Then the last thing that I do need to point out is And the last thing to point out is, had this been the very last turn of the game, there would have been ships left out in space that did not actually get to the Earth's spaceport. In that case, they would actually still come and sell at the market, simply put, and it would happen in this order. If you recall, we had a ship out on the medium route, so we would simply take that and put that right here. And there was two ships remaining on the slow route, so we would take the first one, it would move in right there, and then they would sell. After you have finished the turn 7 market phase, including any refreshing that needs to be done, then the final 3 ships will be selling in what is known as the game end final scoring phase. In this phase, you will first sell the medium ship and the first slow ship, and then the second slow ship. There will be no market refresh during this game end final scoring phase. Then, once the final turn is finished, then you're going to add up all of your points. And you're going to get points for several things. First of all, you're going to get points for every item that you have left on the moon, and they will sell at this rate here. I also should have pointed out earlier that right here it tells you that if you ever have a ship arrive back at Earth that has empty space on it, like this one does right here, as you can see it only has 2 Lunarian bars and 1 Lunathus gem, which means that there's 4 empty spaces. You actually get 1 giga credit for each empty space. Think of it like you are taking people's mail home, or probably delivering their Kickstarters. Then after you've received points here, you will also receive a single point for every 3 other items that you have. So for every 3 cubes that you have, you're going to get 1 point. It's important to note that that does include both energy and life support. And I should also point out that the habitation parts only count as 1 when it comes to this final scoring. Then, in addition to those points, you're going to add up any points that you have received from your gold modules and for any of the upgrades that you have given to your moon base, whether that be the blue side or the purple side. It's important to note that you only get 1 of the upgrades, whichever one is your best. So if you'd upgrade it all the way to advanced life support, you would only get this 8 giga credits. You would not gain 3 giga credits for this side, and then another 8 for this one. Then you're simply going to check to see who has the most points, and whoever does is the winner. And finally, I'm going to just mention there are several different modules that you can include in this game. The first one is there are a series of what are called beginner cards that can be used for a less experienced player. And what they do is they give you an idea of how you should progress through the game and actually gives you bonuses for doing less complex stuff as you go. On the other side of the coin, there are challenge cards, which can be used for a player that is perhaps a little more experienced, and they give a variety of different penalties and handicaps that have to be overcome for that particular player. Next, there are a series of faction cards, and these cards will change the way that you either set up your faction at the beginning of the game, or it may change various things throughout the mid-game and the end-game as well. And then the final module that you can use in the game is known as the Moon Wonders. And you'll actually be drafting some of these cards on turns 4, 5, and 6, and it's just another module that has new ways to score points, and you can check out the rules to learn how that works as well. And then, of course, there is also the ability to use an AI in the game. This will allow you to either play the game solo, or it will allow you to add 1 or 2 additional opponents in a game with multiple players, which this also allows for a co-op version for 2 players. There you have it, folks. That's how you play Lunar Rush. If you're interested in getting your own copy, you can find links to that down in the description. And as always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And